Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be ranking all the Pokemon that are in theme decks in a tier list. I'm only going to be talking about theme decks that are good theme decks that you're going to see. So pretty much the ones that are in the Sword and Shield block, as well as the latter half of the Sun and Moon era. So we have, I think, 20 theme decks. We also have Darkness Fang and Mock Strike, which are decent decks that you'll certainly see some, especially because of challenges. So let's just hop right into this. There's a lot of Pokemon to get through. So we're starting off with Solrock here, a decent set of Pokemon, solid health, but nothing amazing. Can do a little bit of damage, but does more if there's a stadium in play, but there aren't really any stadiums, so it's pretty weak. So I'd say it's like B tier. We got Golduck from the Intelion, the Unseen Depths theme deck, which does a solid amount of damage. The basic can confuse, which is kind of useful at times, and then you can hit solid damage, but you do return the energy to your hand, so you're going to end up falling behind on attachments. This is also a B, could even be C, but I think it belongs in B tier. Another card from that deck, Kyogre. This is a very solid attacker. Accelerates some energy from the discard, and that's generally better than from hand. From deck would probably be better, but it's great mid to late game setting up Pokemon, and is also pretty tanky with 130 health, so B tier. Empoleon with Recall and Aquafall, probably one of the best attackers in the game, if not the best, certainly an easy S tier. You can copy the Piplup to do 80 for 1, or the Prinplup to do a 100 snipe and discard energy. You can even do 130 for 2, so it's amazingly powerful. You do have to lose some energy at times, but generally it's just one of the most efficient attackers in the game and can just completely shut down whatever your opponent's doing. We also have Phione, which is a nice utility Pokemon. It just makes your opponent switch their Pokemon, which is usually something they don't want to do, and it's nice. It doesn't usually have a massive impact, but there are games where it completely changes the outcome, and you can use it as many times as you want because it goes back into the deck. So just really good ability. We got Groudon, very similar to Kyogre, but you can't stream it, so that's not great. It accelerates from hand, so it's good for like the first 3 or 4 turns of the game, and for the last 3 or 4 turns of the game, but generally it's pretty bad the rest of the game. It deserves probably B tier. It can hit good damage. It's essentially the same as Kyogre in terms of damage and health, but the ability not to stream it and also not to always accelerate because you need energy in hand certainly hurts it a lot. Now we got Seismitoad. This is a pretty good attacker, and you also got the Palpitoad, the stage 1, which does very efficient damage. I think it's like 60 for 1. Damages your bench, which can be good to power up other attackers, but also bad because obviously your self-damage is bad. So it's an efficient attacker though, and it also has the Bulldoze ability on the stage 2, allowing you to search for any card, just stack it on top of your deck. It's not as good as Magcargo, which we'll get to, which is stage 1, but it can allow you to do some cool combos. But yeah, let's go to Magcargo, which is easily an A tier, probably above Phione here. It does, it just searches for any card and, as I said, puts it on top of your deck. It's really good with Entei because then it guarantees you hidden energy to do big damage and can one-shot anything. Also, of course, gets you any combo pieces you need, and you can just use supporters to draw into that a lot of time, and also get stage 2s and all your combo pieces set up exactly how you need it. Next, we have Throw, which is probably bottom of A tier. 120 health, really good, and also doing 120 damage if you have damage on your bench. This is where the Palpitoad comes in, really clutch. So you can do bench damage, or if you've been hit into, you can retreat and then have damage on the bench. So then you just do 120 for 2 on a basic, which is some of the best damage in the game. The needing damage on the bench, though, can be super detrimental, but when it works, it's one of the best attacks in the game. It just sometimes takes a bit of setup and a bit of luck to get going. We also have Passimian, which I think is another A tier Pokemon. It's similar to Solrock, but you do damage and also have more health to draw cards. And you have the second attack, Seismic Toss, which just does 70 for 3, which is not great, but not the worst. It's probably the best like setup Pokemon in the game, at least as a basic, because you can draw cards, apply pressure, and retreat out, and hopefully not die. Now we have Ambipom, and I think this is another S tier attacker. It's one of the scariest Pokemon in the game, being able to do 120, turn 2. You do have to discard 2 cards from your hand, but you can pretty much always do that. It sometimes feels really bad to do, but it's always an option. You can draw 2 cards, so that's a decent setup attack if you really have to. Obviously, you need to get the stage 1 first, so that's not usually an option. But the deck is one of those weird decks that doesn't have much setup, so it's in Unseen Depths, which is also has Intelion and Fion. So it's a lot of heavy hitters, but you need to get them set up. So nice catch can be really good. Now we got Lantern, which shows up in a few decks. It's one of the stronger attackers. It can do 140. And it accelerates energy when your Pokemon are KO'd. So you can just kind of leave it on the bench. That's your ideal world. And then charge it up and either hit 70 or 140 and then discard a lot of the energy. The discarding energy is pretty bad because it doesn't, it can't attack after that. So you're just kind of leaving it there and it's probably going to die. But hitting 140 is amazing. It eliminates pretty much everything except for stage 2s. So then you can finish those stage 2s off with Dragonite. But if you're scared of something like Kyogre, Groudon, or any other really big basics, Lantern's a great counter. We got Selazal. A bit of an interesting Pokemon here. Probably belongs in B tier as well. It searches for 2 cards, so very solid setup attack on a stage 1. And also just does quad poison. So you can apply a lot of pressure with the severe poison, and then you can search your deck with Nasty Plot while still doing that damage. So you can do some really amazing pressure and interesting combos with that. It's in a pretty bad deck, Destruction Fang, but it's a good attacker. It's not the best though. It doesn't do a ton of damage. It's damage over time. Houndoom also is like that, but it only does 30 for 2 energy and burn. So that's probably less than Selazal. It can do 70 if they don't switch and they flip tails, but that's not even that good. And obviously super conditional, no pun intended. And then it also just does 90 for 3, has 110 HP, 1 retreat cost, which are okay stats, but they're not the best. Next up here, we got Hydreigon, which is not that good. It's strong. You can remove energy from your opponent's Pokemon. You can discard your bench Pokemon to heal them. You can hit a solid amount of damage. You have a nice amount of health, but it's not particularly scary because it's not one-shotting everything like most stage 2s do, and it's not applying any crazy pressure to the bench or really scary effects to the active. You can discard energy from them, but usually they can just reattach and not be too scared of that. So it's pretty underwhelming for a stage 2. Now we got Mawile, which is an okay setup Pokemon. You have Call for Family, which is good. You have a decent amount of health too. It's probably mid low B range, and you can also remove energy from them. So that's good, but it's not super powerful and isn't a big threat to your opponent. It does have Psychic Resistance, which is also kind of cool, but in the decks this and most of the other Pokemon also have Psychic Resistance, so it's not a huge deal. Now we also have Suicune, which does big damage on a basic, but it doesn't have any acceleration. Probably belongs on bottom of B. It hits hard. And can hit for only 1 energy. So it's a bit scary, but usually not too powerful, and usually very hard to set up. You also can attack back-to-back with a big attack, so that's a bit problematic. You also have Galarian Dominitan, a very powerful attacker, and it just does a ton of damage for stage 1. Can do some spread, can do like one shot. They're active, but it doesn't. It's so expensive, which is just brutal. There's also the Fire Glare and Dominitan, which I'm including with it. It's unfortunately just so awkward to get up. It functions like a stage 2 though, which is kind of cool. So I'd say it belongs in mid B. It just is a nice Pokemon. It's the main Pokemon though. It's a little underwhelming. We also got Beartic, kind of similar. So that's a bit better. It does good damage for 2 and 3. It does damage itself though, so it loses that tankiness. But it can deal with threats pretty well and isn't too expensive. We have a Wishy-Washy though. A nice setup Pokemon, but it has horrendous HP, only 30. So it's getting one-shotted most of the time. You might have something like Passimian. That will two-shot it, but if they have Professor Kukui, they can one-shot it. It's a decent setup, though. You shuffle draw 8, which is amazing. So I'd say it's also another Pokemon that belongs in B tier. It's a bit scary using it because you can get donked and you can just, you can just get behind on prizes early while you're setting up, but it's pretty good. Now we got Doug Trio. This Pokemon's decent. It's kind of cheesy. Has that agility attack essentially, where you flip a coin. If heads, you're immune, which is really good. It's only just 30 damage though, so it's a bit of a poke. It's one of the safer pokes in the game because you have the chance of immunity, but it doesn't have a lot of health, so it's gonna die in one shot usually. 70 for 2 also isn't very impressive, but it's not bad by any means. Just not the best. What is bad though is Hippowdon. I'd say that's a D. That's one of the worst attackers in the game. I'd say it's always bad it always feels bad to use. It doesn't do much damage. I mean, it does a solid amount of damage, but the first attack's a coin flip, so you might not get the damage you need. And it's so expensive. It's such a big retreat cost. The basic's bad, so it's really just underwhelming because it's just so expensive. And there aren't really any Pokemon that are that expensive that can't be accelerated too easily that are good. And its payoff isn't very good. We got this other Passimian, not as good as the one in the Towering Heights deck. This is in the Gland Surfetch deck as well, which a lot of the newer fighting Pokemon are in. But it has Call for Family for 2, a good amount of health, and also has a decent attack. So it probably belongs mid B as well. It's a nice setup Pokemon. It's not the best or the worst though. We got Gland Surfetched here, which is a fun Pokemon. It does 180 for 3, which is just absurdly good. But then it's not like, it's very good, but then you can't use it again. So until you leave the active, it's better than Glare and Dominitan though. It deals with threats really well, but there aren't a lot of Pokemon that can deal with mid-level threats. They're pretty much only Pokemon that deal with low-level threats quickly and high-level threats after a few turns. But if it was in a better deck, it would be really good. And it's probably the best Pokemon in its deck. Right, it's probably, let's put it here. It's not a setup Pokemon though. We got Kangaskhan from Darkness Ablaze 2. This Pokemon's really good. It's probably bottom of A. It does 120 if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn for only 2. That's amazing. Like Ambipom does that much on a stage 1. So if you can use it as the comeback attack, it's incredible. And also 100 for 3 is nice. With 30 health, really good. It's just a great Pokemon that just consistently hits solid amounts of damage, and it's generally probably the best Pokemon in that deck, the Galarian Dominitan deck. We also got Lugia, which is in the Charizard themed deck. It probably belongs. It's a bit better than Suicune, but pretty much the same as Suicune. It has a resistance, which is kind of cool. and it only returns 1 energy. It does a bit less, but has more health. It's an okay Pokemon. Weakness diversity is always nice. And I believe Yanmega in that deck is weak to fire, so a lot of weakness diversity, which is always good. And then we got Blaziken. This Pokemon's really good, or quite good. I'd say it belongs in B tier, though. There are a lot of solid Pokemon. Blaziken's one of them. It doesn't do a lot of damage, so that's problematic, but it's really good acceleration and also some decent spread, decent damage, and just sets up for a strong board state that your opponent's kind of scared of, and also has a solid amount of health. For stage 2, it's not a lot of health, but for a general Pokemon in general, it's a good chunk. We got Tertinator now from Battle Mind, which was in Dragon Majesty, that set. This Pokemon's bad. Like, it can essentially do infinite damage, but you need to welder, so you need a specific supporter, a specific set of energy, and all the right Pokemon, and it's just so much just to do like 150, and popping that off in 1 turn is amazing, but losing all the energy means you're back to square one after you attack with it. So even if they don't KO it, which they probably will because it doesn't have very much health for a big basic, then you're still stuck with this guy on the active with this big retreat cost and no options for next turn. And it doesn't help that it's not in the strongest of decks either. So put that in C. We got a really good Pokemon here, though, in Malamar. It's in a few decks. Probably belongs in mid-A. You just accelerate energy, same as Blaziken. That's Psychic type, but it just does this amazing acceleration. Not a particularly good attack, but it's accelerates to Necrozma and some colorless guys in most of its decks. So that's pretty nice. You can just essentially get ahead on attachments, and it's really the best energy acceleration in the format, I think. There also is Dragonite, but that's a stage 2. Yeah, it's the best universal energy acceleration, I gotta say. And now we got Furfrou, and Furfrou's kind of bad. It's not that bad, though. It's you draw till 5, you do 20 poke for a colorless. It's kind of cool. Actually, no. I think this Pokemon is decent. It belongs in like B, mid B. A lot of Pokemon do, and it just does some poke damage, kind of like Passimian. It draws some cards sometimes. The big issue is you'll often have a clogged up hand, so you won't end up drawing any cards with it, which is really unfortunate, but generally you'll be able to draw some, and then you can do some damage, and then get yourself into a decent position. As I said, though, it can be bad if your hand's clogged up, but still, decent health, decent damage output, decent Pokemon. Oh, this Pokemon's bad. Beware. I think that's D. It has solid health, but it's one of those big damage Pokemon. They're just like impossible to power up. It doesn't even do that much damage. It does 60 unless they're basic, in which it does 120, which is good. I guess it'll one-shot any normal basic, but there are big basics, which it won't even one-shot. And then you draw 3 when you play it, but it's way worse than like any other draw engine in the whole game, pretty much, because it's a one-time use thing. You can technically loop it with High Dragon's Weed Out ability, where you discard it and then recover it, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that. It's essentially impossible to do, so it's one of the worst Pokemon in the game, unfortunately. It's kind of fun, but it's bad. We got the Shuckle, though, which is kind of fun. You search for some energy and discard them, and then you can also accelerate them with this attack. It has low health, though. It's a bit underwhelming, usually. It's not a Pokemon you'll use most games. I think it belongs in C tier. It just isn't, it's not very strong. It's just so little health. You need to probably use it like turn 2 at the latest, because you really need to use it to set up your Pokemon, but you also have Fire Starter, which is way better, and just manual attachments. So generally it's just kind of bad, and you're just giving up a prize usually. You also got Heracross, which is a big basic, not the biggest health, but not bad either. And then it has its Powerful of Friends attack, but it only does big damage. It does 120 for 2, which, as I said, with Kangaskhan is amazing. but you need a stage 2 on your bench, and that's obviously really hard to do. So getting that is really good, but a lot of games, it's just such a struggle to get up. Once you get it, you can just kind of Blaziken and Heracross and do good damage, but by that point, I really want to be able to one-shot anything, and it doesn't do that. So it's pretty bad. Yeah, I'd honestly put it below Hydreigon. It's unfortunate. And then we got Houndoom, though, from the same deck. Searches for any card for one on a stage 1, but I'd rather use, obviously, Selazal's search for any 2. You just colorless, but that's not too good. The basic, also, the Houndour draws cards for each Houndour you have in play. So that's good for setting up, but not super consistent, but it's nice. That bumps it up to like B, probably bottom of B. Its attack does 130 for 2, which is like one of the best attacks in the game, but only if you have more cards in your hand than your opponent. And it ends up in a bad spot where it's like the only deck in the whole format that doesn't play Hop or How, and it's the only deck that actually wants it. So you usually don't have a bigger hand than your opponent unless you get set up super well, in which case it's good, but unfortunately a lot of the time it's not super good. We got Entei, though, the big attacker in the Blazing Volcano theme deck, but it doesn't do that much. It's probably C tier as well. It does burn, which is nice. It does it can do big damage, but also mills random cards from both people. And if you hit energy, you do more. If you hit any energy, you essentially one-shot anything, which is strong, obviously, and very good. But you need Blaziken usually to set it up. And it's not. And you also need Magcargo to hit your energies. And you'd much rather use Magcargo for getting all your combo pieces. So unfortunately, it's a big downside of the deck, not having like an amazing one-shotting ability. It can one-shot, but it's unfortunately pretty weak. Now we got Ampharos, which I'm debating between A and S. I put it in S, I guess. It's one of those Pokemon that can win a game all on its own, pretty much. You paralyze your opponent if you can put 2 energy from your hand into the Lost Zone. So that's really good. You'll often have 2 energy. If you use it like 10 turns in a row, you're going to run out at some point. And that's really bad because you can't recover it anyway because it's in the Lost Zone. But most of the attacks aren't too expensive in the deck. And then it just does 50 snipe to 2. And usually you have a lot of turns to hit the bench with it. The big issue is if your opponent's able to escape that paralysis or one-shot Ampharos or do both, then you just kind of lose. But that's because the rest of the deck isn't super powerful in terms of attackers. But Ampharos is one of the scariest Pokemon in the game to go against. So I'd say it deserves to be an S. Now we got Raiku, which is one of those bad attackers I was talking about. I think this belongs in F, or in D, because there's no... It does 120 for 2, amazing, but only if you have energy in the Lost Zone, which is after you get Ampharos, and Ampharos will probably just carry you anyway once you reach that point, and before then it's horrible. It's for 2 costs of 2 is pretty brutal, because it's not a Pokemon you want early game, because it applies almost no pressure, so it's just a real detriment to the deck, and what's honestly keeping the deck that Ampharos and Raiku are in, which is, I don't remember, Stormcall, yes. It keeps that deck down, unfortunately, from being the best. But that might be for a good reason. We do have Zeb Striker, though, which is another Pokemon that I kind of want to put in S. I guess I'll put in A. You just discard your hand, draw 4. You can use it every turn. It's probably the best straw engine in the game. Maybe not. We'll get to Pidgeotto at some point, which is maybe better, but really good. And also 60 for 2, that's fine. Not too bad, or 2 cost of 1, resistance, 110 health, all nice effects. But just discarding your hand every turn to draw 4 new cards. It sees the most cards of any card in the whole game, I think, other than certain attacks, which obviously end your turn. So you can just use this every turn if you want to. The big issue is discarding your whole hand every turn, which can be really bad if you have to discard evolutions. The deck does play Rescue Stretcher, so you can recover them, but it's not always super consistent. But it will eventually get you the pieces that you need. And it gets them very actively, unlike something like Magcargo, which is kind of over time you build to a better spot. Now we have Naganadel, again from Stormcaller. And this is another A-tier Pokemon, probably bottom of A. It accelerates to itself, kind of like Lantern, except it's from the discard, which is even better because you have much more control over it. And you can do it even when you're not losing, so that's nice. And it also does 80 for 3, which is whatever. When you're accelerating, it's 80 for essentially 2-1 or even 0 sometimes. So usually it's like essentially 80 for 1, which is really good with its ability. And it has 130 health. And then you can do 160 on the turn where you have or you have 3 prizes remaining. It would be better if you had either more prizes so you could one-shot big threats in the early game, or like less prizes so you could finish the game off with a big KO. But it still functions as a strong Pokemon in the deck. We got Smeargle, also from the Lost Thunder decks. This card's bad. It's one of those cards that gets played around it's one of the weakest setup Pokemon. You can look at your opponent's hand and use a supporter there, but most decks can end their turn without a supporter without too much of a detriment. Usually they may use like Howl or Hop to draw 3. And then in that case, they might end up with supporters, which you can copy. And when it copies those, it's very good, but you never know what you're going to get. Its other attacks almost completely useless because it doesn't really apply any pressure. It can sometimes hit bad stuff like Professor's Research, where you like discard your hand when you really don't want to, and it's just so inconsistent in your opponent. I guess you don't have to Professor's Research. I'm getting it confused with the older Smeargle, but you can't really use that supporter. Sometimes you'll hit weird supporters like Pokemon Center Lady, or where you just heal, but you like can't heal, so it's essentially useless. And it's unfortunately just not too good most of the time, especially against better players. Peliper, which is a decent attacker in the Kingler and Dominitan theme deck, I believe. It's above Beartic. It's around that level. It does a bit less damage, but it has an upside of moving energy to your bench. So if you're getting KO'd, you can preserve an energy attachment, and you can also hit for 50 for 2, which is fine. And you also have resistance, which is always nice. So we got Stonejourner here, which is honestly bad. It's not as bad as Hippowdon, I guess. It's about as bad, though. I'll put it above Beware, too. It does 80 for 3, which is not great, and 120 for 4, or I think it's 180 for 5. You're never going to get 5 energy on this Pokemon. You'll maybe get 3 or 4, but its big health is nice as a wall, but it's pretty much useless most of the time because it's just so slow that it just doesn't work. And another Pokemon that's really bad, Glam Berserker. Not as expensive, though. 50 for 2, as I said, is okay. The second attack, I guess it belongs in, like, C, somewhere around here. It can do okay damage. The basic, the Glare Meowth, can also hit some okay damage across a few turns. So it's not bad, but it is bad. I also got Probopass. I'll put that in, like, C as well. It doesn't do a lot of... no, I'll put in B. It's okay. It does not a ton of damage for 1. I think it's more for each energy retreat cost they have. So you can hit for decent damage on those big basics like Groudon and Kyogre, which is good. And sometimes you can hit big damage on stage 2s. And then heavy impact, 120 for 3. Not the worst. And 140 health. It kind of functions as a big basic attacker, except you need to evolve it once. So it's not... It's worse than Groudon. You can stream attacks, though. I'd say it's like low, mid B. You got Groudon, though. Pretty cool Pokemon. I'd say it's like here. It accelerates, has good HP, does a nice poke, and can do solid damage. The big issue, though, its second attack, Power Beam, only does 110 damage, which isn't usually enough. If you can hit into them with the first attack and do a total of 140 across 2 turns, that is very good, but you usually can't do that because your opponent will see that coming from a while away, so they won't just leave that Pokemon in the active to die. So you're almost never getting big KOs, which is unfortunate. 110 is enough to two-shot, though, but you'd rather have big threats usually. It can be nice, though, to accelerate to your Corviknight and other Pokemon in that deck. It's a decent card, but nothing amazing. We got Zacian here. One of those just big basics. It can kind of stream attacks, but it doesn't do a lot. It kind of is meh. Like, I guess it's like just a whatever big basic. Has resistance, which is fine. All the Pokemon in the deck have resistance, like all the metal Pokemon do, so it doesn't really matter, but kind of cool. You can accelerate to itself. You can just do decent damage. It hits that 120 mark, which is kind of... It's okay. There's a big difference between 110, 120, and 130, and hitting 120 is fine. Zamazenta, though, significantly better than Zacian. Mostly because of its guard press attack. Push it up all the way to like here, like mid upper B, because you can just poke and then not take a lot in return, or essentially not get one-shotted almost ever, because you have in essence 140 health. You take 20 less, so that's really good. And then if your opponent hits into you with a Pokemon like, let's say Zacian, for example, and does 120. Then you will still live, and you can do 120 back to them. And then you essentially can swing the prize trade in your favor a lot of times. It only does that in specific situations, because if you're hit with something like Kyogre, they're probably fresh unless you hit them with guard press, so then you can't one-shot them back, but it's okay. You trade evenly and can just apply some nice pressure. We also got Unpheasant. This Pokemon's pretty cool. You do 50, take 50 less. It's like Zamazenta. It does it better, though. It's a stage 2, but the payoff's really good. I'd honestly say it's a solid... this belongs in like upper B tier. And 150 for 3 is really good. And honestly, it belongs in like top of B. It does big damage and great walling. I mostly played it against fighting decks, which means it's really good because you also have the additional resistance. But against normal decks, it's just so good. You're not getting one-shotted, and compared to Corviknight, which is a bit lower, you don't have to lose all your energy. We got Hallucia, which is a mediocre setup Pokemon. It's one that you shuffle draw 5, so you lose your whole hand. It has 90 health, though, so it's better than Wishy-Washy. It does more damage than Wishy-Washy. It's probably near the top of B as one of those solid setup Pokemon that are just nice to have and can get you out of bad situations. Now, you also have Whimsicott here, which is... it's a weird Pokemon. 50 for 1. That's pretty good. It doesn't have a ton of health, though. You can, on a coin flip, return a Pokemon into their deck, their active Pokemon into their deck, which is really weird. Like, people go for it, and when it works, it's okay. When it doesn't work, it's really bad. I don't love this Pokemon, but 50 for 1's very, very solid amount. As I was saying, like 50 for 2 is good, or is okay. So I'd say it probably belongs in the top of B as well. It's just one of those solid Pokemon that can do good damage. Now we got Maractus, one of those coin flip Pokemon, or the coin flip Pokemon, but you just want lots of energy on it, do big damage on a coin flip. It's a staple Pokemon in the deck. It's one of the better big basics because you can always chain attacks. I'd say it's probably top of B because it does a solid amount of damage. The big issue is the consistency, but it's a fun Pokemon. It's a good Pokemon too that can win games. It can lose you games, but I think it belongs as one of the better Pokemon. Nah, it's not this good. Let's drop it down to like mid B. Still a good Pokemon. Now we got Rillaboom. This Pokemon's solid. It's like Glandar Manitan. It's a stage 2, but it does more. It also has ways to accelerate to it. So it'd be with Eldegoss, but Eldegoss shouldn't immediately like bump it up to A. I'd say it's probably it probably belongs in like mid upper B when there's normal Pokemon. But yeah, here we got Eldegoss, amazing Pokemon, best set of Pokemon in the game, I think. You can search for 3 basics with Keep Calling, but more importantly, you accelerate 3 energy from the deck with the attack. And this is the best energy acceleration per turn. It is an attack, though, so you can't deal damage that turn. But by turn 3, you got some massive threat set up almost all the time. Sometimes it's a Rillaboom, sometimes it's a Snorlax, sometimes it's a Maractus. But it's just amazing. And that Pokemon set I can hit into. So it's truly the best set of Pokemon in the game, I think. Zeb Striker, Kyogre, Malamar, Passimian, all very good. But I think Eldegoss probably takes the cake there. Now we got Ninetales, mediocre Pokemon. It's one that does nice poke, accelerates to itself, can do decent damage, not too committal. I'd say it's probably a decent way into B. It's not a big threat, but it's a good Pokemon. Cinderace is one of the best decks in the game, honestly. So, and Ninetales is a big part of that. Just being able to apply a little bit of pressure, nothing too crazy, and just wear away at your opponent. You can retreat off easily because you can just recover the energy. It's a good Pokemon. We also got Cinderace, the big Pokemon, the Cinderace theme deck. 160 for 3 is great. 40 and accelerating to yourself is great. It's not amazing though, because you can one-shot stuff. You don't one-shot all stage 2s though, and you don't always live either. Some stage 2s will one-shot you, which is really bad because you'll struggle to use Bright Flame. It's a good card though. I'd say it belongs in top of B. It's one of the better Pokemon, one of the better stage 2s. Not like an amazingly powerful stage 2, but it's good, and it will win you games, and it can be what wins you games. We got Kingler here. Just a good stage 1. It's not one of the better stage 1s, though, honestly. It mills a random card from their deck, but that's not that good. It's a stage 1. Its second attack's not great because you're going to have to 2-shot stuff almost all the time. HP's good, but it's not like anything crazy to make up for its weak attacks. So I think it belongs to C again. We got Mantine. This is another Pokemon B tier. I see we have a lot developing in here, but there are a lot of mediocre Pokemon. And it searches for energy, which is kind of cool. And it attaches to 60 turn 2, which is scary. It can, if you go first, deal big damage and just get a quick KO. Can get donks and stuff. It's pretty good. It's a Pokemon I like. So I'd say mid B. It doesn't like make games, but it can from time to time, and it's decent. Okay, now we got Intelion from this one, the Intelion theme deck. This card's bad. Like, it doesn't do much damage for a stage 2. It's not really scary at all. It's not really good either. Like, it's one of the it's the worst stage 2 in the game, I think. Like, it's okay, 100 for 2. That's fine. And you return an energy to their hand. That's fine. You can also discard a random card from their hand, which could be good, but usually isn't. So generally you get almost no payoff for getting your stage 2 up, which is really bad because almost every deck in the game has an amazing stage 2. Or if they don't have an amazing stage 2, they have an amazing stage 1. The Intelion theme deck doesn't have that, which is just brutal. You also got the Dreadnought from that deck, and that's really bad too. It's horrible. It just doesn't do very much damage for the amount of energy you need. It's like one of the worst attackers in the game. The pre-evolution is okay, but not that good. Now we got Cramorant. This Pokemon's pretty weak too. Compare it to Mantine, and it does less damage. It just feels worse. It's B, it's C, I think. Top of C, can do some sniping, which is kind of cool. Can do a decent amount of damage. I guess it belongs a little bit higher. The difference between 50 and 60 is really bad, though. There's so many Pokemon you can one-shot with 60 that are just like basics, but pretty much none with 50. So I'd say it's C. We got Sudowoodo here. Cool Pokemon. This belongs in... I don't know. This Pokemon's really good. Belongs top of B. It's draw 2. Very standard. Very good. You got Pokemon like Solrock with that, which are already very good. And then you also have the second attack, Flail, which does damage based on the amount that you've taken. So pretty much, it's one of those Pokemon that you don't want to poke into early game. So you only want to take it out with a one-shot. Occasionally, you'll two-shot it, but you might either eat a lot of damage for it or also just give your opponent more turns to set up. So it's one of those Pokemon that you're always scared of, and so unless you have some insane setup, it's really bad. It also hits a decent weakness, so if you're hit into something like, or say a Furfrou hits into you, then you can hit them back for more damage than they did to you. So a lot of the time, its weakness is really good. And even something like Zeb Striker, they hate hitting into you. They're just going to die. So it's really good. It's one of the better setup Pokemon in the game. Oh, yeah, Pharaoh Thorn. This guy's kind of bad. It doesn't do a lot of damage, and it's pretty expensive. It's not like the worst stage 1. It has a 1 energy attack that hits okay. Has a solid chunk of health, and it can move its energy back onto the Corviknight, which is really good. We got Bisharp here. This is an amazing Pokemon if it's in the right conditions. 120 health, 1 energy to attack. You can hit 90 for 1, which is amazing. You usually don't. As some games you do, though. It's mid, upper B. There are a lot of mediocre Pokemon in these decks. And all have good uses. We got Corviknight here. This Pokemon's definitely an A at least. Yes, it's A. It's like mid A. It's what carries the Zamazenta theme deck completely. It does decent damage, has a lot of HP, and then with its attack you can discard 2 of your energy, which isn't too bad. You can obviously get up in 2 turns. Sometimes 1 if you accelerate to it with Duraludon or something like Metal Saucer. Or the Pharaoh Thorn, so you can get it up, and then you're just doing solid damage and never getting one-shotted. You should never get one-shotted with Corviknight unless you're in some really weird position or your opponent somehow got an absurd amount of damage they can do, because you essentially have 270 health. So it is the tankiest Pokemon in the game. Compared to Unpheasant, it's, it does a little less damage, and it's a bit more all-in, but it's so good. It just it doesn't die, and if it gets set up with like 4 or 5 energy on it, then you almost just win, because you almost take no damage every single turn. Now we also got Snorlax. This guy's pretty good, it's in a good deck with Eldegoss, but I'd say it's like Maractus. It's probably about as good as Maractus. Sometimes it just sits in the active and you get set up eventually and then just take some KOs. Sometimes your opponent also will just KO it, but you can sit behind and buy some turns. Well, you get your Eldegoss and your Rillaboom set up, so it's a slow Pokemon. It looks about as good as Stonjourner, but it's just in a better deck, and it just works better. You also have healing in the deck, so when you're attacking with it, it will live. So that's pretty nice. You got Drampa here. This guy's good. This guy probably carries Cinderace, which is very good because it just does 80 for 2. Honestly, this guy's A tier. Doing 80 for 2, you do mill yourself 2, but 130 health, 80 for 2, just one of the best attacks and most efficient attackers in the whole game. It just is, it's so good, and it will apply a ton of pressure. The big issue is there's a lot of Pokemon with like 90, anywhere between 90 and 120 health, in which case doing 20 more than some other Pokemon It's not amazing, but you know, you got Ninetales, you got Cinderace, you got a lot of guys in that deck to just kind of push away at them and eventually get the KOs, and you shouldn't die too often with Drampa either. And it also diversifies the weakness. Water weakness is bad for a lot of fire decks, and Drampa's the way you can avoid that. Now we got Dubwool, also in the Cinderease theme deck. This guy's really good too. It's a tanky stage 1. It's like one of the only tanky stage 1s. With Cotton Guard, essentially the same as Zamazenta. And then its other attack damages itself, which can be bad because it essentially is the reverse tankiness. But it's a good Pokemon. It's not one of the best Pokemon. It's probably like upper B, you know. Very annoying to deal with. If they just Cotton Guard a bunch, it might take like 3 or sometimes even more turns to deal with them if you don't have the necessary tools, and you're just going to be eating damage in the meantime. It's only 1 energy while you set up the rest of your Pokemon, so it really functions as a very strong wall if you get it set up. Now we got a Rangoru from Sun and Moon, and this guy's really good. This guy's, you know, you got one of those big attacks, which are okay, but the draw power is really nice too if you get down to a low hand size. It's not that good though. It's in a bad deck, but that doesn't mean it's a bad card. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the biggest health, has a kind of beefy retreat cost, which isn't a good thing. I'd say it's somewhere in the middle of B. You draw up to 3 every turn, but you never usually have less than 3 cards in your hand. So you're almost going to draw no cards in the entire game, which is unfortunate, especially when paired with Beware, which has anti-synergy with it. Okay, now we got Charizard. This guy's amazing. This is the second best. This is one of the best stackers in the game. I guess I'll put it second. It's not as good as Intelion. It's not as versatile, but it just one-shots anything. It's one of the only. It's the only Pokemon that just obliterates whatever it wants. I think I've almost never seen Charizard fail to one-shot. It always one-shots. So you can build it up to whatever you want. Even Corviknight. Corviknight is not weak, which is nice, but Charizard can accelerate to it once on the bench and then just one-shot. So it's so scary. It's really bad to go against. And Charizard's just so good. Does so much damage and powers itself up so you can attach to other Pokemon. And it's like, it's so free. It's so easy, and it just wins. You got Rapidash. This guy's really good too, because of agility. And it's better than Doug Trio because it does more damage. There's more energy, but if you can often stream it. It's a... I guess it's top of A. It's such a good attacker. Does so much. I don't know if I can. Yeah. It's so good. 60 for 2 is not the worst. But then when you have a 50% chance of immunity, and it feels more like 75% chance of immunity. Honestly, the first attack even isn't bad, which is 20 and burn. You can just do. You can sweep your opponent's board with it. You shouldn't be able to, but it just works so well. And it's one of the best. You know, it's not as good as Zeb Striker and Magcargo, but it's still really good. Or Passimian. But now we got Blastoise. This guy's like solid. This guy's an A. I'll say bottom of A. It's a stage 2. It accelerates energy. It's not guaranteed like Charizard though. It also does less than Charizard a lot of sometimes, and self damages, so it's not tanky either. But it's good. You can accelerate to anything. You look from the deck, so it's the reason. It's one of the reasons Torrential Cannon is so good. Torrential Cannon is more of a counter deck, but it's a very strong deck as well. So I'd say it belongs. It belongs in the A tier. You can power up other attackers, and it kind of keeps the deck working. Also, Golduck, amazing attacker. Also belongs in A tier, 90 for 3. Not amazing, but it can be a 90 snipe if you're against water decks, which is, it seems like it should be really good. And it is really good. The big issue is a lot of the stage 1s in those decks have like 100 health, so you're not actually one-shotting them, but you can always pick up some kills and mess with your opponent early if you get a good start. And also Amnesia just chooses one of your opponent's attacks, and they can't use that attack, and that can just win games, because if your opponent only has their last attacker set up, you can be like, nope, you can't use that attack, and then you can just win. So it fixes some math and just can wall off some guys completely, and even the basic Psyduck has a 50% chance of Trainer Lock, which is absurd. It's not always so good, but it's pretty good. Now we got Nidoqueen. Another A-tier Pokemon. This is top, it's like mid-A, I guess. It can do big damage, and it's a really good engine piece, really tanky, different weakness from the rest of your attackers, and also really, it's just nice. But before the stage 2, it's useless, so that's not great. But once you get the stage 2, you almost always win. So it's so good, and it doesn't guarantee games, but it's quite good because you can set up everything. Pidgeot, and also Pidgeotto, more importantly. This is S tier. It's not the top of S, but it's so good. You just draw a ton of cards. Actually, no, it's A. It doesn't guarantee you the game, but it almost does. It's quite nice, and it's in very good decks as well. The Pidgeot also applies some interesting pressure, kind of like how Whimsicott does on his coin flip attack, but it's guaranteed. It's a lot of energy, but the decks that play Pidgeot have a ton of acceleration, and it doesn't guarantee you stuff with Pidgeotto where you look at the top 2 and choose one, but you will develop a large hand with powerful options to be able to counter almost every scenario. So that's good. Now we got Farfetch'd, which is fine. It's got to be B tier. It does the same thing as Solrock, has less HP but has resistance, and it can do more damage. I don't think I've almost never used Solrock with a Stadium. It's just almost always 2, but Farfetch'd can do more if they have a tool on them, which I've done occasionally. It should almost never matter, but sometimes it does. It's a bit worse than Solrock, but it's about as good. We got Dominitan, the regular Fire Dominitan. This guy's bad. It's one of those where you lose the energy attached. You can do big damage, you have a lot of health, but you need to welder. It's like Tertinator, except as a stage 1. It's a bit more reliable, you need less energy, but it's not great. You can do something with its first tech to stretch out energy, which is okay, but it's not too good. Incineroar, that's pretty cool. 90 for 2, not amazing, but you do more damage, have big health, pretty low maintenance. It's like the safe line in the Battle Mind deck, and I think that puts it solidly in B. It's not the best, but it does some pressure. Allows you to fix the numbers with stuff like Dominitan, Tertinator, and any of your other fire attackers, or any of your attackers. Then we got Selazal. This is A, somewhere in A. It's so good. It's you discard a fire energy and draw 3. And it draws so many cards, right? Drawing 3 cards without needing to discard your whole hand like Zeb Striker, it's almost always good. The big issue, though, is specifically the deck it's in, which also isn't a great deck, which kind of hurts it some. You need a lot of energy in your hand, and so you are now losing those, but you're getting so much other stuff, and it doesn't have a lot of search, so you're often still going to miss all your pieces with it. Even though you might have a 20-card hand, you still don't have the cards you need, which is unfortunate. And then you can deck out as well, because the deck it's not really equipped for Selazal, unfortunately. But Selazal is still an amazing card. Certainly belongs in A tier. It's better. It's in the bad deck that doesn't work with it, but it's a good card. Okay, now we got Pukimiku. This guy's bad. It's like a bad setup Pokemon. You got Call for Family, but that's like it, and you'll use it. It's in one of the best decks in the game, but Unseen Depths. It's not. It's pretty bad though. It's like C. It just sets you up, and that's it. It doesn't even always set you up well, because the basics in the deck aren't particularly good. I mean, Kyogre is good, but early on it's not good. And Surprise Fist is, I don't think I've like ever used it. I guess it's not the worst. 60 for 3, which isn't good. But then if you win Rock, Paper, Scissors, it's 120, which is good. But getting the energy on it's almost impossible unless you use Kyogre or you're in a weird spot. You also got Pikumuku. You got Mewtwo, which is really good. You recover any supporter onto your deck when you play it. Has 120 health, does 70 for 3, and I think ignores effects and resistance. It's kind of weird, but it's good. It's a good support Pokemon. Most decks don't have amazing supporters, but the deck Mewtwo's in Battle has Welder, so it's amazing. Honestly, this is A. Certain decks it would be like S. Certain decks it would be like B, but in the deck it's in. It's a solid A tier attacker and support Pokemon. Then we also have Mew. This Pokemon's really good. This is a easy A. Not S, but it helps. Its side power attack is whatever. It's 30. Sprinkle it around wherever you want on your opponent's side of the field. But then your bench is also immune to bench damage. So that's amazing because you can just be immune to Apollyon, which is one of the best attackers in the game. You can be immune to something like Blaziken's bench damage. You can be immune to Tornadus's bench damage. You can be immune to Golduck's bench damage, which can't hit you. But imagine if it could. Now you're immune to it. So it's really nice. It just gives you safety, and it means you can't get cheesed out by weird stuff. And also because you're going to be damaging your own bench with the Palpitoad, which is, it's good for you that you're damaging it, but you want to have complete control over that. You don't want your opponent just taking free prizes, which could happen if Mew wasn't in the deck. Now we got Meowth, which is one of those normal boring draw Pokemon. It's one of the worst ones, but because you do go to sleep when you use it, so you have a 25% chance you'll be asleep on your turn, which is really bad. 60 health is pretty bad too, and its other attack 30 for 2 is also bad. So I'd say it's bottom of B. It's unfortunately one of the weaker setup Pokemon, but it's not that much worse than Farfetch'd and Solrock, but you'd much rather have them. They're significantly better. We got Thundurus here. This guy's really good. This is A. Yeah, it's A, I think. To being A or A, yeah, it's not S. Thundurus is the best basic attacker in the game. It can hit 70 turn 2, which is amazing on a basic specifically, and it can hit 120 turn 3, which is insane, and can consistently hit 120 because you have energy acceleration in the form of Dragonite, so you can just run through your opponent's Pokemon. You do have to damage your own bench, which is unfortunate, but usually you can find some other Pokemon to just dump that damage on. It's not too big of a deal. It does sometimes open your opponent up to bench damage, KOs, but usually then they're not KOing Thundurus, so it's fine. And also hits weakness on a few good Pokemon like Pidgeotto and Pidgeot, as well as the Tornadus, which it works well with. You got Mesprit. It's probably the best call for family attacker, which doesn't say much. Most of them are bad, so mid B, get yourself set up, draw some card, or get your basics in play. It's not in the best deck, which is unfortunate. It's in Laser Focus, which has some bad attackers, but it's nice. You're never gonna use it more than once, but I guess it's because it's so good. Now we got Necrozma. This guy's pretty good. It carries its deck, or pretty much. It's honestly bottom of A. Barrier attack, it's just a better version of Zamazin's attack. And second attack can one-shot anything if you have special energy on it, which can be very hard to do, but if you get that set up, you're in an amazing position. And then we got Garchomp, another good attacker. I don't think... Yeah, no, it's A. It's A. It's one of the best attackers in the game. It can one-shot anything if you're down on prizes. But you can just wait defensively And against decks that aren't able to get like a bunch of attackers in play, you can just wait. Your opponent will just wait. And then eventually either one, they will not do anything, and then you just win. Or two, they take a prize, get up on prizes, and then you just counter them and then kill all their big threats with your big threats, and then you win. So the third option, of course, is that they are able to counter all of your threats, which is occasionally possible. Or they can just outspeed you. But Garchomp's so good when it sets up, has free retreat, which is really cool. Pretty non-committal, one of those Pokemon that just is a few energy, some solid damage, and can become really big damage at certain points as well. Now I got a Lowland Grimer, an interesting draw 2 Pokemon. It's free attack. It's free attack, which is good. It's really good. And I think it might be the only Pokemon here with a free attack. I'm not sure. There might be some pre-evolutions with free attacks, but it's really good. So you can draw 2, but then it gets stuck in the active. But no, it's probably better than most of these. Probably near the top of B. It does. It's nice. Has resistance, which is funny. I don't think I've ever had it hit by a psychic Pokemon, but it does have that resistance, and it also is weak to fighting, which is kind of bad. I think it would be better if it wasn't weak to anything and had no resistance. But you know, it draws 2, which is very good during the early game, and its issue is that it will get stuck in the active, but that's not the worst problem. It means you're ready to attack, but your opponent will just take an early prize. But then you should just be able to sweep, because once you're set up, you got these amazing attackers like Thundurus, Tornadus, Lantern, Dragonite, you got the Pidgeotto and Pidgeot stuff. So just such a strong combo. You got Dedenne, which is Furfrou. It's significantly better than Furfrou, though. It just draws another card. And so you will usually draw cards with, I think it's Draw Till 6, Furfrou's Draw Till 5. But Dedenne belongs as... It's not that much better than... it's significantly better than Furfrou, but it has less HP, so it will usually die sooner. I guess it's like mid, upper B. It's okay. Now we got Dragonite, and this... I don't exactly... It's definitely S. I know that. I guess it is the best Pokemon in the game. It's almost an auto win. It's not as much of an auto win as Empoleon. I'm more scared of Empoleon than I am of Dragonite. But it's so good. It sets up all your Pokemon like perfectly, and it also is such a good attacker. It one-shots pretty much anything, and it is very tanky itself. And you can also just use its tankiness to pile damage on it with Thundurus and just not attack with that at all and use it as purely set up. The big issue is it's obviously a stage 2, and it will struggle to get set up. And even when it's set up, it's not an auto win because it's not just an attacker and it's not just a support Pokemon. You will still probably need Pidgeotto in play and some other attackers to make the best out of it. Just straight Dragonite, is okay, but can kind of get bad because it's so much energy. It's 4 energy, which you can pay with its ability, which accelerates the lightning and water. But then you discard 3 of those, so it's a big commitment, but can be really good. And then we got Tauros, Call for Family for 1, which is bad, and then 60 for 2 and 10 to itself. This guy's pretty bad. It's one of the worst Call for Family attackers, or it is the worst Call for Family attack in the game. Just searching out a single basic. Damaging itself is kind of bad. 60 for 2, turn 2, though, can be good. That can win you games. So it's not the worst. It's probably the worst one in B tier. I don't know. This Pokemon's kind of funny. You can kind of just send it up with a U-turn board, get a free card from time to time. This attack's kind of bad, but it's one of those whatever Pokemon that is it's okay setup. It's also probably bottom of B. We got Tornadus though. This guy's really good. It obviously has to be played with Thundurus because that's how Thundurus does its more damage with its first attack, and Taurus does more damage with its second attack. It belongs in A, definitely. It's nowhere near as good as Thundurus, though, and has more health. Or, sorry, it has less damage. It does have resistance, a useful resistance. But its attack isn't amazing. Spread can be good, but usually isn't too impactful. I say it's near the bottom of A. It doesn't like make the deck. You know, there are better cards in the deck. You know, you got the Dragonite, you got the Pidgeotto, you got the Thundurus, which are all better. It's still a good attacker. Now we got this Gumshoes, which is in the Malamar and Charisma theme deck. Laser Focus, it's very good. Just 90 for 2, very good attack. You know, Nazgo's Ambipom better than some of the other stuff that does like 60 or 70 for 2. I say it's top of B. This might even be an A tier attacker. Yeah, this is an A tier attacker. It's not the best, but it's close. It does a solid amount of damage, has an amazing amount of damage, a solid amount of HP, and its downside of not doing damage to GXs and EXs, or not doing much, is completely bypassed. You got Silvally, another strong stage 1. It does 80 if you're KO'd last turn. Compared to Kangaskhan, this is horrible. But it can do big damage. 120 for 3, you know, fine. With Malamar powered up, it's decent. And 130 health is nice too. Just one of those decks it feels like a big basic, but it's not a basic. So probably belongs somewhere in like the mid-upper B range. We got Spiritomb here. Kind of funny Pokemon. You've recovered 2 supporters from your discard pile into your hand with your attack. So, you know, that's good. Using that as your attack is kind of annoying, but it allows you to go in with Garchomp and do big damage. And the Mach Strike theme deck. And Terrify also stops damage done to... or stops the defending basic from attacking next turn. So it's one of those Pokemon that can wall off and steal out some games. It's not as good as like Golduck with this Amnesia. It also doesn't set up, but it's okay. I'd say it's probably like mid B. You know, it can be really good. Some games can like completely win games. Can be kind of useless in a lot of others though. We got Lucario here. Which if you got the Garchomp in play, you can search for any card, which is insane. But it's a stage 1 and a stage 2, which is a lot to ask for. And once you set up, you don't need that much else. So, you know, it's a good card. It belongs. It's a strong card and near like the top of B. There's only one of it in the deck too, which is unfortunate, but it's a good card. It's one of those cards that started playing standard, which is kind of fun. And then you also got the Garchomp, the Garchomp's pretty good. You know, it's bottom of A. It's a strong attacker. It's not it can one-shot anything, but 3 energy, all manually attachments, which is pretty brutal. And then 50 snipe to anything for 2 is good. You know, free retreat as Ascension, so it can evolve up quickly. It's a good card, and obviously has that synergy with Lucario. It's not the best, but it's good, and it's one that it's fun. It's strong and can be really good. We got this Hippowdon, not as bad as the other Hippowdon, but still bad. Bottom of C, you know, expensive, hard to power up, that sort of thing. Big health, you know, stage 1. It's pretty bad. It's worse than Stonejourner. It's there. This other Gumshoes though, kind of cool. They can be played around. It does I think it's 100 for 2 if they have a Pokemon in their hand, which they usually do, but you don't always know it. Kind of that problem with Smeargle. It usually hits though. It's kind of hard to play around. Not impossible though. It's a solid stage 1. It's not it's not like a great stage 1. It's a pretty good stage 1 though. It's one that you like. Mid B. You got Type Null, which is, it's okay. I think it does like 60 if they have damage on them or something. It's fine. It is kind of filler though. It's unfortunately not super strong. You almost never use it unless you're losing. So I'd say it's like bottom of C. It's not too good. You got this Yanmega in the Charizard theme deck. And this guy's okay. This guy's pretty good. It's A. Hit and run 50. Has free retreat, good health, kind of expensive attacks, but you got B to power it up, and you can also just switch around and use it as a wall. It's very good. It's not. I'll put it in B. It's not great, but it's good. You got Charizard, really fun. This guy's got to be in A. Tempted to put in S. It's not one of the best attackers in the game, though. I mean, it is one of the best attackers in the game. It has massive health, but it needs certain combo pieces. Well, it needs Leons in discard to do big damage, and it's also 2 attachments, which isn't great. Pretty scary. One of the tankier Pokemon that also hits big damage, but it's not like broken by any means. It's good though. We got this Magcargo. This Magcargo is horrible. This might be the worst Pokemon in the game. It's 60 for 3, which is not good, and it has 130 health, which is not. It's good, one of those tanky Pokemon, but it's bad. You see all the tanky Pokemon making up the D tier here. So it kind of just sits there and then eventually dies. The magma. Wait, no. What's the Slugma? The basic can put them to sleep, which is okay, I guess. It's not that good though, and so it usually just dies and loses. So you don't ever want to attack with this. We got the Samurott though. The Samurott's really good. I think it's A tier. It is 3 manual attachments, which is so much, but it's also so tanky, and it's if you're against another big Pokemon, it's it's A. Top of B. Sorry. Big damage, massive health, but it doesn't one-shot stuff for 3 energy. It does return energy to their hand though. If you get up early, your opponent just kind of loses. Good Pokemon. Not one of the best though. You got this other Dreadnought from the Dreadnought theme deck, which is pretty good. 80 for 3, and you can paralyze. I'd say it's still a C tier attacker though, unfortunately. A decent C tier attacker, but still a C tier attacker. We got this Cramorant. Discards your Arrokuda on the bench, and then you can recover them with Nessa. It's good, big damage. Honestly, can hit. You can theoretically hit 180 turn 2, which is obviously absurd, but you don't. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. And also, you're dishing resources, so it's not a consistent attacker, but it's a good attacker. Fun to use. I'd say it's like mid B. Maybe not. No, I think it's upper B. It's a good attacker. Not one of the best, but it deserves a place as one of the strong, funny Pokemon. And then we got this Barraskewda. Nice sniping Pokemon. Essentially triples the damage to one of their bench Pokemon. It can be blocked by BU, but it's good. And 60 for 2s, whatever. It's not that good though. It belongs like here in a solid mid B Pokemon. So yeah, here's the whole list. Gonna zoom out so you can't see the whole list. It's kind of big. Ta-da! Yep, this is big. This is a lot of Pokemon. I know this was very long, so I bet no one's still watching. But if you're still watching, normal outro stuff. If you like, subscribe, comment down below as well. Comment any changes you like. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how I'm perfect, because I am. But yeah, these are how I think they are. We got some really good Pokemon, some really bad Pokemon, and a lot of really okay Pokemon. And tell me if you want more theme deck stuff. I want to do more in the future. I considered breaking this into different parts. I just kind of went with it. Hopefully I've fixed some of the audio issues I've had in the past, and visual issues. I'll zoom in so you can see it better. You can see them pretty clearly now. You know, you got some amazing Pokemon in the S tier. You got, I stand by Intelion, best Pokemon in the game. Dragonite, Charizard, Ambipom, Ampharos, and Eldegoss, rounding it out. So, you know, if you don't start with one of the first 5 letters in the alphabet, I'm sorry, but you can't be S tier. Those are the rules, you know. But we got some really good Pokemon here. And I want to mess around with themes some more. I will be releasing a theme deck tier list with maybe with a special guest, and should be doing some more theme deck stuff in the future, and also some standard stuff. Hopefully they release some more theme decks. They've released some like V battle decks and stuff, but yeah, I'm rambling. So as I said, if you like the video, really appreciate if you guys some feedback, and excited to try out some more stuff and see you in the next video.